Hey people, how are we today? We started talking about investing some videos ago, and I wanted to continue the conversation. So I remember saying in the last video that investing has to be a very clear end point. In you have to have a clear end point in mind, and that end point will then determine every other thing that you do towards getting to that point. So, for example, if you say, okay, I want to have a net worth of 100 million within the next 10 years. Now, what you're saying to yourself is, I want to make 10 million a year, or, you know, I want to make 10 million every year for the next 10 years. Or you want to say, I want to put myself in the process of being someone who is able to command 100 million naira net worth, right? So that means that every action you're going to take from that point will be an investment towards that goal, right? And I think this is where most people, especially Africans, miss it because we are so short-term minded that we don't think about the future much, right? We always believe that the future will take care of itself. While that may be true, but it has a context because there's a set of things you put in place that determines if the future can take care of itself or not. So, for example, if you are earning a certain amount and you are burning more than that amount every month, it is almost certain that that future will be crippled by the time you get there. It won't take care of itself at all. But if, for example, you are spending below your means, you have every chance to arrive at that future in a much healthier state. Now, what this means is that you have to have that picture clearly defined. So, in the last example, I talked about giving your children a second passport. That is one example. Another example is, okay, I say I want to have a high skill. I want to have a very marketable skill in the next 5 years. Now, what that means in essence is that I must begin to, first of all, ask myself, what high value skill do I need to be able to put myself in that position? Right? So, for example, people talk about tech. You see a lot of people saying, oh, tech is lucrative. Oh, tech is this. You can earn up to $200,000 every year. You can earn up to $100,000 every year from tech. But what they did not tell you is the investment processes that went into that. You don't just wake up and jump into an industry and then rise to the top very quickly, unless you have very exceptional talent, which by the look of things is not very common. So, which means that everybody must put in the work. Even the most talented need to put in the work. It's always amusing when I hear stories of people like Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo being the first to arrive at training and being the last to leave training every single day. Now you imagine, why is this? These people are supremely talented. Why are they putting in all that work when they can just coast? Yes, but we have seen people in the same trajectory who are very highly talented as well, who did not make it, who fizzled out after a short while. Take Eden Hazard, for example. This guy was blazing hot at Chelsea, and then he got his dream move to Real Madrid, and he arrived on the first day overweight. Now, how do you arrive at your dream unprepared? And needless to say, what the result of that is, he spent 4 years at Real Madrid with nothing really to show for it because he couldn't even play. He was almost always injured. Now, that tells you that your end point, once it's fixed, you must prepare ahead for it. And every action you take is an investment into that. So, if I say I want to be a tech genius, for example, I have to invest time, I have to invest energy, I have to take courses, I have to, take practice, And all this period where you're doing all these things, most of the things you will do will not have commercial implications, which means you can make much money from that process. I remember back in the days when I was still very Mr. Tech. I used to write code. There was almost nothing I couldn't do with a computer except graphics design. That's the only one that I always run away from. And I have a very creative mind, so maybe I'll give that a try one of these days. But, I was most of the things I was doing at that time and learning, and I was doing most of them for free because at that time I couldn't command a fee, right? So I kept doing those things. But the more I did it, the better I got at it, right? And when I left school, and my business was not businessing, it was struggling to take off. At some point, I even had to file for bankruptcy. And at the end of the day, I thought, wait a minute, I have so much skills in this thing. Why don't I just, go and try to, use what I have, and I got a job off of those skills that I have, and from there, I started building little by little till I stumbled into some other opportunities that, of course, gave me the opportunity to expand and have more options. Now, the point here is that most of the time when I was doing all those things on campus, it looks like this guy is just wasting his time. Why are you doing all these things free of charge? Why are you not trying to make money? Right? But the point here is the more skillful you are at what you do, which means the more experienced you are. Experience doesn't come by reading books or following certain instruction manuals. Udemy does not give you experience; it gives you knowledge. But knowledge, experience comes from doing, which means you keep doing that thing, whether you're making money from it or not. And then little by little, like little building blocks, before you know, you're going to build yourself into the place where you can command AI value, right? And that is the whole essence of investing. So it's not just about buying a stock. Of course, we'll talk about that, but that's not the only option, because I always say the biggest investment you can make is in yourself, which means the more you invest in yourself, the higher the chances that you're going to make high income. And when your income is high, with your expenses controlled, you have every chance to create wealth. Because remember, from our savings and wealth series, we discussed that it's important to keep your expenses under control. The more control you have over your expenses, the better your growth can be if you can manage, the rest of what you produce, right? Because if you don't have anything left after you have produced every month, what are you going to use to improve yourself or invest in the future, as it were? So it's important for you to understand that investing is an all-round game, right? It involves your mind, your body, your soul, your family, everything you can think of. And that means that you must define each of these points in your mind. So, for example, we talked about giving your children a second passport, which should be one of the important targets for most Nigerians, because our passport at the moment is an embarrassment. I'm sorry to say. Maybe that will improve in the future. I don't know, but for now, you're shut out of many opportunities. Even when you're trying to travel, maybe for vacation, you get embarrassed almost all the time. With that green passport, and it is sad, but it is a reality that you have to deal with. Yes, and that means that you have to give yourself the opportunity to, mitigate against that limitation, because that is important. What you're doing with your investing is to create better options for yourself, which means if there's an handicap, you want to create a step above that so that you can function regardless of the limitations that are there. And that's why it's so important for you to take this thing very seriously. Don't think it's just about making money. Money is one aspect of it. We have seen people who have made money and still gone back to being worse, right? So we'll continue this conversation in the next video. See you soon.